was calling me for battle. Then I dropped off.
The 308 Deliverance by Mendelssohn, the Jew, was as joyfully welcomed by the world-grown pagan, as in an earlier epithet affected by the Jews, Jesus and Paul of Tarsus, was welcomed by the heathens. His contemporaries were delighted both with the contents and the form, with the glowing, fresh, vigorous style, a happy, artistic imitation of Plato's dialogues. From all sides letters of congratulation poured in upon the modest author. Everyone of the literary guild who passed through Berlin eagerly sought out the Jewish Plato, as one of the greatest celebrities of the Prussian capital, to have a word with him. The Duke of Brunswick seriously was securing the services of Mendelssohn for his state. The Prince of Lichtenberg treated him as a bosom friend. The Berlin Academy of Sciences proposed him as a member. But King Frederick struck the name of Mendelssohn off the list, because, as it was said, he desired at the same time to have the Empress Catherine admitted into the learned body, and she would be insulted in having a Jew as a companion. Two Benedictine friars, one from the convent of Peter, near Erfurt, the other from the convent of La Trappe, dressed Mendelssohn, the Jew, as the advisor of their conscience, for instruction in moral and philosophical conduct. The book Ph1, out of date in 20 years, as remarked above, raised its author to the height of fame. He was fortunate, because he introduced it to the world exactly at the right moment. An incident vexatious in itself served to exalt Mendelssohn to an extraordinary degree in the eyes of his contemporaries, and to invest him with the halo of martyrdom. John Caspar Lavater, an evangelical minister of Zurich, an enthusiast who afterwards joined the Jesuits, thought that he had found in Mendelssohn's intellectual countenance a confirmation of his deceptive art. The reading of the character and talents of a man from his features 309. Lavater asserted that in every line of Mendelssohn's face the unprejudiced could at once recognize the soul of Socrates. He was completely enchanted with Mendelssohn's head, raved about it, desiring to possess a well-executed model, in order to bring honor upon his art. Mendelssohn, having caused his Ph1 to speak in so brief a fashion that no one could have recognized the author as a Jew, Lavater arrived at the fantastic conclusion that Mendelssohn had become entirely estranged from his religion. Lavater had learned that certain Berlin Jews were indifferent to Judaism, and forthwith reckoned Mendelssohn amongst their number. There was the additional fact that, in a conversation reluctantly entered upon with Lavater, Mendelssohn had pronounced calm, sober judgment upon Christianity, and had spoken with a certain respect of Jesus, though with the reservation, if Jesus of Nazareth had desired to be considered only a virtuous man. This expression appeared to Lavater the dawning of grace and belief. What if this great man, this incarnation of wisdom, who had become indifferent towards Judaism, could be won over to Christianity? This was the train of thought which arose in Lavater's mind after reading Ph1. Ingenuous or cunning, he spread his net for Mendelssohn, and thus showed how ignorant he was of his true character. About this time, the Geneva professor, Caspar Bonnet, had written in French a weak apology, entitled Investigation into the Evidences of Christianity Against Unbelievers. This work Lavater translated into German, and sent to Mendelssohn, with an offered dedication, which looked like a snare. September 4, 1769. Lavater solemnly assured him to refute publicly Bonnet's proofs of Christianity, or, if he found them correct, to do what sagacity, love of truth, and honesty would naturally dictate, what Socrates would have done, if he had read this treatise, and found it unanswerable. 310. If Lavater had been really acquainted with the secrets of the heart, as he prided himself, he would have understood that, even if Mendelssohn had severed all connection with Judaism, Christianity was still more repugnant to him, and that sagacity, that is to say, regard to profit and the advantages of a pleasant existence, was altogether lacking in his character. Lavater did not desire to expose him before the public, but he wished to create a sensation, without thinking what pain he was causing the shy scholar of Berlin. Mendelssohn later had reason to thank Lavater for having through thoughtlessness or pious cunning drawn him out of his dividend and disapproval. Mendelssohn had indeed expressed his relations to Judaism and his co-religionists so vaguely that onlookers might have been misled. In public life he was a philosopher and an elegant writer, who represented the principles of humanity and good taste, and apparently did not trouble about his race. In the darkness of the grave he was a strictly orthodox Jew, who, apparently unconcerned about the laws of beauty, joined in the observance of every pious act. Self-contained and steadfast though he was in reality, he seemed to be a two-fold personality, revealing the one or the other as he was in Christian or in Jewish society. He could not stand up in defense of Judaism without, on the one hand, affronting Christianity by his philosophical convictions, and, on the other, showing, if ever so lightly, his dissatisfaction with the chaotic traditions of the synagogue, and so offending the sensibility of his co-religionists and quarreling with them. Neither of these courses, owing to his peace-loving character, entered his mind. He would have been able to pass his life in an attitude of silence, if Lovator's rude importunity had not dragged him out of this false position, altogether unworthy of a man with a mission. Painful as it was to reveal his innermost 311 thoughts upon Judaism and Christianity, he could not hold his peace at this challenge, without being considered a coward even by his friends. These reflections weighed heavily upon him, and caused him to take up the glove. He skillfully carried on the contest thus forced upon him, and was ultimately victorious. At the end of 1769, in a public letter addressed to Christendom and Lavater, its representative, Mendelssohn in the mildest form wrote most many truths, whose utterance in former times would inevitably have led to bloodshed or the stake. Mendelssohn had examined his religion since the days of his youth, and found it true. Philosophy and belles lettres had with him never been an end, but the means to prepare him for testing Judaism. He could not possibly expect advantage from adherence to it. And as for pleasure, oh my worthy friend, the position assigned to my co-religionists in civil life is so far removed from all free exercise of spiritual powers, that one's satisfaction is not increased by learning the true rights of man. He who knows the state in which we now are, and has a humane heart, will understand more than I can express. If the examination of Judaism had not produced results favorable to it, what would have chained him to a religion so intensely and universally despised? What could have prevented him from leaving it? Fear of his co-religionists, forsooth? Their secular power was too insignificant to do any harm. I do not deny that I have noticed in my religion certain human additions and abuses, such as every religion accepts in course of time, which unfortunately dim its splendor. But of the essentials of my faith I am so firmly and indisputably assured, that I call God to witness that I will adhere to my fundamental creed as long as my soul does not assume another nature. He was as opposed to Christianity as ever, for the reason which he had communicated to Lavater verbally, and which the latter should not have concealed, namely, that its founder had declared himself to be God. 305. Yet, for my part, Judaism might have utterly crushed in every polemical textbook, and triumphantly arraigned in every school composition, without my ever entering into a controversy about it. Without the slightest contradiction from me, any scholar or any scientist and subject snubbing of my have constructed for himself and his readers the most ridiculous view of Judaism out of worthless books which no rational Jew reads, or knows of. The contemptible opinion of a Jew I would desire to shame by virtue, not by controversy. My religion, my philosophy, and my status in civil life are the weightiest arguments for avoiding all religious discussion, and for treating in public writings of truths equally important to all religions. Judaism was binding only upon the congregation of Jacob. It desired proselytes so little, that the rabbis had ordained that any person who offered to unite himself to this religion was to be dissuaded from his design. The religion of my fathers does not care to be spread abroad. We are not to send missions to the two Indies or to Greenland, to preach our belief to remote nations. I have the good fortune to possess as friends many excellent men not of my creed. We love each other dearly, and never have I said in my heart, what a pity for that beautiful soul. It is possible for me to recognize national prejudices and erroneous religious opinions among my fellow citizens, and nevertheless feel constrained to remain silent, if these errors do not directly affect natural religion or natural law morality, but are only accidentally connected with the advancement of good. It is true that the morality of actions does not deserve the name, if based upon error, but as long as truth is not recognized, as long as it does not become national, so as to work as powerful an effect upon the great mass of the people as ingrained prejudice, the latter must be almost sacred to every friend of virtue. These are the reasons that religion and philosophy give me to shun religious disputes. Besides, being a Jew, he had to be content with toleration, because in other countries even this was denied his race. Is it not forbidden, according to the laws of your native city, he asked Lavater, for your circumcised friend even to visit you in Zurich? The French work of Bonaparte did not find so convincing, he said, as to cause his convictions to waver. He had read better defenses of Christianity written by Englishmen and Germans. Also it was not original, but borrowed from German writings. The arguments were so feeble and so 313 were tending to prove Christianity that any religion could be equally well or badly defended by them.
How are you?
Thought that Socrates could have been convinced of the truth of
Wow, that's
Christianity
cool.
by this treatise. He only showed what kind of prejudice exerts over
Help, we're gonna die.
evangelical consistory before it being Mendelssohn offered to lay his letter for censorship before printing it, did not regret granting him permission to print whatever he pleased, because they knew his wisdom and modesty to be such that he would write nothing that might give public offense. Still, he undoubtedly did give offense to many pious persons. Mendelssohn's epistle to Lavater naturally made a great sensation. Since the appearance of PH1, he belonged to the select band of authors whose works every cultivated person felt obliged to read. Besides, it happened that the subject of the controversy was attractive at the time. The freethinkers by no means few at this time are glad that at last someone, a Jew, had ventured to utter a candid word about Christianity. Owing to his obtrusiveness and presumptuous advocacy of Christianity, Lavater had many enemies. Please read Mendelssohn's clever reply to the zealous conversionist with mischievous delight.
Yeah, Kanawajo!
Said love was
Number
Charles
one.
Mendelssohn expressed January 2nd, 1750, his admiration that he had spoken with such great tact and so high a degree of humanitarianism upon these nice
Let's
questions.
see if I got something.
Bonnet himself, less objectionable than his servile flatterer,
30%
admitted the
female.
justice of
That's good.
Mendelssohn's cause, and complained of Lavater's injudicious zeal. A letter of his dated January 12, 1770, was almost a triumph for Mendelssohn. He said that his dissertation, with which Lavater had desired to convert the Jew, had not been addressed to the Honorable House of Jacob, 314, for which his heart entertained the sincerest and warmest wishes. Much less had it been his intention to give the Jewish philosopher a favorable opinion of Christianity. He was full of admiration for the wisdom, the moderation, and the abilities of the famous son of Abraham. He indeed desired him to investigate Christianity, and he only gained by being subjected to close inquiry by the wise son of Mendel. But he did not wish to fall into Lavater's mistakes, and make it burdensome for him. However, in spite of his virtuous indignation, Bonnet perpetrated a bit of knavery against Mendelssohn. Lavater himself was obliged in a letter to publicly beg Mendelssohn's pardon for having placed him in so awkward a position, entreating him at the same time to attest that he had not intentionally been guilty
Wow,
of
I
any
can't find
indiscretion
all
or
the
perfidy.
pieces. I found
Thus,
several of them,
Mendelssohn
but I
had an
haven't found
opportunity
them
of
all.
acting magnanimously towards his opponent. On the subject proper under dispute, however, he remained firm. He did not surrender an iota of his Judaism, not even its Talmudical and political peculiarities, and in every step his courage grew. Mendelssohn did not
sure.
wish to let pass this propitious opportunity of glorifying Judaism, which was so intensely contemned,
Two,
and make it
three,
clear that
can you
it was
count
in
them?
no way opposed to reason.
Five,
Despite the warnings of timid Jews, to allow the controversy to last, so as not to stir up persecutions, he pointed out with growing boldness the chasm which Christianity had dug between itself and reason, whereas Judaism's insistence was in accord with reason. The nearer I approach this so highly esteemed religion, he wrote in his examination upon its appearing pianism, the more abhorrent is it to my reason. It afforded him a special delight when strictly Orthodox Christians thought that they were avenging Judaism by declaring it to be equivalent to natural religion deism. 315. Blessed be God, who has given unto us the doctrine of truth. We have no dogmas contrary to, or beyond reason. We add nothing, except commandments and statutes, to natural religion. The fundamental doctrines of our religion rest upon the basis of understanding. This is our glory and our pride, and all the writings of our sages are full of it. Frankly, Mendelssohn spoke to the hereditary Prince of Brunswick of the untenability of Christian, and the reasonableness of Jewish, dogmas. He thought that he had not yet done enough for Judaism. Would to God, another similar opportunity were granted me. I would do the same when I consider what we ought to do for the recognition of the sanctity of our religion. Those who were not wholly parted company with reason declared Mendelssohn to be in the right, and his defense to be just. They beheld with astonishment that Judaism, so greatly disguised, was yet vastly superior to celebrated, official, Orthodox Christianity. Through its noble son, Judaism celebrated the triumph.
blast hard
Lavater,
cheese.
and a refined yet daring answer of Mendelssohn for a long time formed the topic of conversation in cultured circles in Germany, and even beyond its borders. The journals commented upon it, and noted every incident.
Hey, bacon
Anecdotes
burn.
passed backwards
This is
and
blast hard
forwards between
cheese.
Munich and Berlin. It was said
There
that
you go.
Lavater had asserted that if he were able to continue for 11 days in a state of complete holiness and truth, he would most positively succeed in
I
converting
cannot
Mendelssohn to
believe that
Christianity.
I just unloaded an
When
entire
Mendelssohn wrote
magazine.
saying whether authentic
Oh,
or
yeah.
not, it is characteristic of Lavater
Thank
being
goodness.
said, if I am permitted to sit here in my armchair and smoke a pipe philosophically, I have no objections. There was more talk
Blast
of
you,
the contest between
hard
Mendelssohn
cheese.
and Lavater than of war and
Well,
peace.
okay.
Every year
let's
brought
get on
pamphlets
that.
written in German and French,
So we're gonna
unimportant
heal some people.
productions, which did not deserve to live long. Only a few or 316 on Mendelssohn's side, the majority took the part of Christianity and representatives against the influence of the Jew, who did not consider it an honor to be
Dirty
opposition
bot.
to the Christian community. The worst of these was by a petty, choleric author named John Balthasar K. Bale, a Frankfurter of Maine, who, from hatred of the Jews, or from distemper of body and soul,
to get
hurled
tolerance
such coarse
for
insults
bots.
against Mendelssohn, the rabbis, the Jews, and Judaism, that his very violence paralyzed his onslaught. K. Bale had on the previous occasion attacked Mendelssohn, and
That's
jeered
no
at him by
cheese.
means of a lay figure in one of his forgotten romances. He desired to write.
Stop.
He said that he had written, and had seized on against Mendelssohn's PH.on. His
Not
whole
fast
all was
enough.
vented in a letter to Mr. Mendelssohn upon the affair of Lovator and K. Bale March, 1770. Against the assertions of Mendelssohn as to the purity of Judaism, he brought forward the calumnies and perversions of his brother in human
Close.
eyes and manner. Mendelssohn's pure, unselfish character was known in almost all cultivated and high circles of Europe. Nevertheless, K. Bale cast a suspicion upon him of adhering to Judaism from self-interest, because a Jewish bookkeeper is in a better position than a Christian professor. The former besides derives some profit from attendance in the antechambers of princes. To Mendelssohn's asseveration that he would cling to Judaism all his lifetime, the malignant Bill or Libel rejoined, how little value Christians attach to the oath of a Jew. Mendelssohn disposed of him in a few words in the postscript of a letter addressed to Lovator. Nothing more was required. K. Bale had condemned himself. Mendelssohn profited by these vilifying attacks, inasmuch as respectable authors, who in their hearts were not a little irritated by his independent and bold action, left him in peace. 317 rather than be associated with K. Bale. Mendelssohn emerged victorious from this conflict, trifling only at first sight, which had lasted for nearly 2 years. He rose in public opinion, because he had manfully vindicated his own religion. It had brought upon him also the reproaches of pious Jews. That which his discernment had feared took place. From love of truth he had publicly declared that he had found in Judaism certain human additions and abuses, which only served to dim its splendor. This expression offended those who reverenced every custom, however un-Jewish, as a revelation from Sinai, because it was sanctified by time and the code. The entire Jewish world, including the Berlin community, with the exception of the people who belonged to Mendelssohn's circle, would not admit that Russ had accumulated upon the noble metal of Judaism. He was therefore questioned on this point, probably by Rabbi Hirschelberg, and asked for an exact explanation of the phrase. He was very well able to give a reply, which probably satisfied the rabbi, who was no zealot. But his orthodoxy was still suspected by the strictly pious people whom he termed the
Kablooey.
failures of our
I like
co-religionists.
that now.
He was obliged to exculpate himself
Ouch.
from the imputation of having pronounced the decisions of Talmudical sages as worthless
Killed by a
trash.
bot?
Young fools, adventurous spirits, thirsting for knowledge, with good minds, but confused thoughts, both pure and impure elements, forced themselves upon
Well, those are
Mendelssohn
bots.
and brought him into bad repute.
Fairy
The
Godmama
majority
is a
of them
bot.
alone with the Talmud, but also with religion and morality. They led a dissolute life, and considered
Hellgoat's
the
a real
philosophy
person.
and enlightenment. Out of love to mankind and independent thought, Mendelssohn entered into relations with them, held discussions with them, advanced and aided them, which also casts a false light upon his relations to Judaism. 318 of the quality and excesses of these young men were imputed to him, and they were regarded as his fatigues and disciples.
I need
This
to
soon gave
give
occasion for an
myself some
increase in
pills.
suspicion.
Ah!
The Duke of Mecklenburg-Schwerin, to avoid the dangers of premature interment.
I want to get this Kablooey guy.
1772,
Oh, he's already dead.
forbidding the Jews of his
Well,
land
that's
to bury
okay.
the dead
You
at once,
can't shoot from
according
there.
to Jewish usage. Jewish piety towards the deceased, which forbids keeping the dead above the earth long enough for decomposition to set and being petrified in the ritual code as affronted by this edict, as though the Duke had commanded disregard
guy's
of
a
religious
control
practice. The representatives of the congregations on sharing supplicated Jacob Olin, the Balthasar, the aged champion of orthodoxy, to demonstrate from Talmudic and from
Ouch.
laws that the long exposure of the clothes was an important infringement of Jewish law. Ending, he moved willingly to compose a memorial in German, referred the people of Schwerin to Mendelssohn, whose word had great
Try my best.
They followed his advice.
I try to
Astounded were
practice
they to
and
learn
get better.
from a letter of Mendelssohn's May, 1772, that he agreed with the ducal order that the dead should not be buried before the third day. Because,
It's okay.
according to the experience of competent physicians, cases of apparent death were possible. And that it was right, in fact,
Dear,
compulsory,
do you want me
to
to-
rescue human life
Okay.
in spite of the
Well,
most
yeah,
stringent
you wanna
ordinances
stop?
of the religious code. Mendelssohn proved besides that in Talmudical times precautions were taken for the prevention
stop?
of burial in doubtful cases. His opinion was, with the exception of
You wanna play?
faultlessly elaborated in the rabbinical manner. Nevertheless, true to his peaceful, complacent
Well, you're not-
nature, he sent the formula of a petition to the Duke to
Hold
mitigate the
on.
decree.
I'm gonna
Ending,
see to it
however,
that she doesn't
in his
feel
orthodox
bored.
zeal, to stamp this disputed question
stop.
319 almost as an article of faith. A custom so universal among Jews, among Italians and Portuguese as well as Germans and Poles, could not be lightly set aside. Not much.